Ladies and gentlemen, we are here at Iron Bank for a very, very special episode. But before we get into who we're talking to my left we have...
Number 10.
Somewhere over there.
Lord Marzi.
Somewhere over there next to him.
CFO, GD.
And we are joined by the man himself... Socceroos legend, coach of Western United, John Aloisi. Hey,
Johnny A.
Let's clap him up.
This is huge.
Clap him up. This is huge.
Was I supposed to have a nickname as well?
No. When I first came on the show as a guest, these guys did this weird introduction. I'm like, what the fuck have I walked into? And then, he had the same reaction as me.
What did they call you? What did they call you in your playing days?
Johnny was mainly.
Just Johnny?
Yeah.
Simple Johnny.
Simple Johnny.
Simple Johnny.
Didn't have too many nicknames.
First of all, I want to thank Western United, John, Nick, everyone at the club, Mel, Jason, everyone that's shown us around today, that's had time for us, the players. It's been absolutely amazing. The hospitality's been incredible. But let's get into it. John, I want to start with your childhood. Obviously, you've got your brother as well. We want to know what it was like in Adelaide, in the backyard, growing up, the competition. Talk to us about your upbringing and sort of what helped shape you become who you are today from your childhood.
Yeah, a lot really. Because first of all, my dad, he loved sport. He played. He arrived in Australia at 9 years old, and to sort of integrate himself into the Australian way with his brothers, they played cricket in the summer. Yep. And his brothers played Aussie rules, but he played football. And so when I started growing up, my dad was already coaching under 18s at Adelaide City, and then ended up pushing on to coach NPL for a lot of years in Adelaide. And I had my brother who was into sport as well and playing football at an early age. So I had them to look up to. And so every day we'd do something in the backyard or play some sort of sport, whether it was table tennis, whether it was cricket, whether it was soccer, whether it was just, taking catches, classic catches, whatever it was, we'll be playing sport.
Classic Aussie kids summer.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And there was a lot of windows broken. There was a lot of fights. And it taught me to be, first of all, resilient and strong, and to have that determination to be better than my brother. Because he was 3 years older, so he was always physically stronger to a certain point. And then...
Sorry, Ross.
Sorry, Roscoe.
So I was really... I'm grateful that I had that upbringing, that I had my brother and my dad that were into sports so much. I want to talk about my sisters as well, because they had to put up with all that. I had 3 sisters and my mum that used to drive us everywhere, but we loved our sport.
Wow.
So... You were saying before off camera that, Italian background. How ingrained in the culture were you? How immersed in the culture were you? Adelaide, big Italian culture there as well, similar to Melbourne. What was that? Did that play a massive part in your upbringing, or were you more like, you know what, I'm Aussie and we do things the Aussie way?
Yeah, we'll put it this way. On our street, we're all Italians.
Yep.
My grandmother lived next door. My auntie and uncle lived next door on this side. 500 metres down the road were my other grandparents, and so we really we were Italian growing up. Australian Italian, of course, because we still had a lot of Australian things that we grew up with and we loved. For instance, the cricket. But we, our Italian culture, and I would never shy away from it. It's something that. Now looking back, I go, how good was it that we made the homemade tomato sauce, or how good was it that we made the homemade salami, or how spoilt were we with some of the food that we could bring to school, and sometimes people used to tease us.
What's in that lunchbox?
The giardiniera, which is like a mix of the olive oil with the sort of vegetables in there, with the prosciutto, with the cheese,
I can hear the bullying from here with that. That's ridiculous.
But you know what? I'm lucky that I grew up with eating that sort of food. Now that sort of food, you're paying 20 odd bucks to get a panini.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I still do a better panini at home.
Oh, you reckon? Yeah. So fast forward into your teens, you go overseas at 16?
Yeah, I went to the Institute of Sport first.
Yep.
So I played, I was with Adelaide City from 14 in the National League side squad training. And then I made my debut at 15 for Adelaide City. But a lot of you guys wouldn't know this because you're too young. But back then, Adelaide City were a top side.
Oh, yeah.
They had Aurelio Vidmar, Tony Vidmar, Milan Ivanovic. These are talking about national team players. Alex Tobin, Robbie Zabika, Ernie Tapai, Calviet, all these players. And so to even just be training with them was such a great learning experience. And had Zoran Matic, so I knew how to take a spray or two because he didn't shy away from it at all. My brother was there, and my debut was against Melbourne Knights, old Melbourne Croatia, and it was back
away.
What year was this? What year is this?
This is 92.
92.
So
wow.
I'm still at school. I'm in year 11, Ross Trevor College's school that I went to in Adelaide. And so on the Sunday, I think it was, the game was, and it was at Cooper's, Old Highmarsh, and there was about 15,000 people there. Wow. And the Croatian community in Adelaide is quite big, so it was a big rivalry. And I came on the last 10 minutes to go. My brother started the game, got subbed off. I went on about 5 minutes later, and the first thing I did was pick up the ball and just start running with it. I was so excited, and no one could catch me. I was that, not that I was that fast, but I just felt like I was gliding. And then the next tackle, and I'll say his name. He's probably a good guy, but at the time it was quite hard. Mark Talajic, he tackled me, and I went to the ground, and I fell down. We were leading at the time, and so I thought I'll stay on the ground. He pushed my face into the ground, and so all of a sudden I didn't know what happened, but 10 seconds later I see my brother there, and I go,
there you go.
I go, Ross, what are you doing here? He goes, I come to see if you're okay. I go, what do you mean? He goes, there's people that have jumped the fence. 3 of our supporters jumped the fence and went to punch Mark Talajic.
God.
And so the next day, knowing that that football, soccer back in those days was never front page, it was front page of the paper because of this riot. Didn't have my name that I made my debut at 15, but when I walked into the school, I felt like a king.
But how's a 15-year-old? I mean,
the NSL.
NSL. Yeah.
So were you the youngest player, or
one of the youngest? Yeah, that's period there. One of the youngest to ever debut.
Can you talk about maybe your process from, let's say, 10 to 15, because they're, puberty years. And from what I'm seeing now, obviously you guys are playing a lot of young players, but 15-year-old playing first-team football in a men's changing room, environments where people are pushing your face into the ground.
That's
stuff
peak
like that.
NSL era too, really.
Yeah. What was that period like? That 12 to 15, let's say.
I was say at 10, 11, 12. I thought I was doing okay, but I was probably. I think that I started to really improve was at that between the age of 13 and 14, because there were players that were playing in my age group, but they were getting selected for state teams, and I wasn't, and I'd been missed out on the final card, and so I would be upset, and my dad would go, well, you know what that means? You need to train harder. You need to be better. You need to work more. So that all of a sudden, that was my mindset. I need to work. I need to be better than the others. I need to put in more hours, whether that was playing, in the backyard with my brother or doing stuff by myself. Or during that period of 14, we had the old National Youth League that used to play in the summer. And my dad was the coach. He didn't select me because I wasn't quite there yet, but I trained all that summer with the National Youth League, and then it overlapped with the NPL season. And that NPL season, my dad was also the coach, but they were playing both teams at one stage at the same time, so he couldn't use these players for both games. So I ended up having to play in the NPL at 14. I come home, I was kicking the ball at the backyard, and my dad goes, you ready for tomorrow? And I go, well, what do you mean? He goes, you're starting tomorrow. And we're playing against White City, which was called Beer Grab back then. It was a Serbian club in Adelaide. And I started and I played well. And after the game, Zoran Matic, our coach, went up to my dad and said, you have to make sure you play your son from now on. He needs to play. He's at a level now that we need to see him play week in, week out. So at 14, I was playing NPL. And I think that having good experienced people around and good people. Aurelio Vidmar, he took me under his wing at a very early age, and I used to stay after training and talk to him, do stretching. Back then, who did stretching after training? But Aurelio taught us that skill set, and so again, I was fortunate to be around a lot of good people.
Stretching, they were smoking ciggies.
Well, a few of them were.
Johnny, before we go into your playing career, can you just touch on, because we've spoken a lot about the development pathways and the shift over the last sort of 5-6 years, and I feel like I was one of the last to experience what you experienced with the Institute and sort of the state team feeder programs going in. But now, obviously, you're seeing the academy set up, and yours arguably is probably the best or one of the best in the country because of how many are playing in the first team. But what is your 2 cents on the shift in model? Because you've kind of seen both sides.
Yeah, look, I think that there was room back then definitely for the Institute. I can understand why it's not there now, because we've got an academy set up. We've got 3 A-League sides in Melbourne that have got academy setups. And if you set it up right, you should be good enough to still produce players. And there will still be players that are outside that academy setup that are in local clubs here that eventually might come across. Dylan Leonard, a good example. He was at Port Melbourne until last year, and we got him across last season to play in our NPL system. He was only 16. So it doesn't mean that you have to have had all those years in the academy. But what the shift that's been good, I think, is that now these academy sides are playing in the NPL and are competing really well. Yeah. And so they're getting ready now for that next step, which is A-League. There was a period there where there were no real academy sides. That if the local NPL product, you're training 2 nights a week. If you're playing under 18s, is that enough? Whereas we went to the Institute of Sport, we're training every day essentially. Yeah. So that's changed now with the academies. And you look at, we talk about ours, but you look at Melbourne City, you look at Melbourne Victory, but also Sydney FC, Wanderers. They're doing an amazing job. Adelaide have got a different model. Adelaide has still got the NTC programs. Yeah. And I think that Adelaide have got it down pat because they're the only club in that state. So no one's going to go anywhere else but Adelaide United. Yeah. So they've been able to produce the right players. And the local teams have got on board there. The local NPL clubs have gone, okay, we know that you're going to take our players when it gets to a certain stage, and we're comfortable with that because we support Adelaide United.
Which doesn't seem to happen too much here, huh?
Yeah, here. No.
Some pushback.
Well, they're bringing the NTC program here, aren't they? Which is like...
Well, there's some teams that even threaten to leave onto the A-League squads in the academies.
Yeah, players, you mean?
Yeah.
That's stupid.
Yeah, it's crazy. Right, so playing career, moving to Europe at 16 to Belgium, right?
Yeah.
Well, what was that culture shock like?
Yeah.
Adelaide to...
That was tough.
Was it Liège first?
It was Liège first.
How did that come about?
So,
So did you want to ask?
Oh, I just wanted to ask
how did
that.
it come
How did
about?
that actually
Yeah, it was funny how it came about. I was at Adelaide City because I went to the Institute of Sport I was there for about 8 months, but what a group we had. We had Viduka, Skoko, Craig Moore. We had so many amazing players within that group. But then I went back to Adelaide City at the age of 16, and I thought I was going to play more regular football. I wasn't. But then there was a Serbian player, his name was Nemanja Obradovic, and he goes, don't even stay here. He goes, go to Europe now. And I'm going, where am I going to go? Who's going to get me there? He goes, I've got an agent, and he'll be able to organise a trial for you. So I went on trial during the season. I went just after, I think it was just before Christmas time.
Hardest time.
Yeah. Oh, it was freezing. Yeah. I remember the first training session, it was like -7 degrees. I'm going, how I can't feel my feet.
Yeah. It's not Henley Beach. You know what I mean?
What am I supposed to do here? My dad came over with me, and my dad's not the best traveller at the best of times. And after 2 weeks, they said they want to sign me. And my dad goes, look, if you want to have a career in football, I think it's best you stay. He goes, but I couldn't do it.
Were you still at school then?
I just finished school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your dad said he couldn't do it in that situation.
Yeah.
Wow. And then you've just taken off.
Yeah, because that was my dream. Was
So
to
did you
play.
fly on your own back there?
Yeah, I flew my way, but on my own back.
And you had obviously there was no social media, anything. So
No.
you just trusted in the random surgeon. Here's me 2 week trial in December in winter in Belgium.
I didn't know like anything. I hadn't
class.
dressed. I had like summer shoes on. So
I did the same and got fucked over.
So you had to grow up pretty quickly. Like I couldn't. They threw me into an apartment and they locked the door and whatever. And the next morning I was trying to open the door. I couldn't open the door. I was going, what do I do? I'm going, how am I? Do I have to climb out the window? And I was in the training facility, but it was my own apartment. And I was like, they were cooking for me at the facility there. So that was okay. But no one spoke any English, or they didn't want to speak to you in English. There was French speaking, but I was there for 6 months. Then I moved to Royal Antwerp, which was the Flemish part, and a lot easier because they're English speaking.
Is that right? So the Flemish part speak more English than the French?
Oh, the French didn't speak English.
Really?
So what was it like, can I ask Johnny, when you got there, in terms of the standard of football that you were used to playing and then you've gone to Belgium, was there a big difference from what you were used to here?
Not at because I wasn't in the first team at Liège.
Yeah.
I was more in that second team. The standard was good, but it was more just the professionalism of them and the way that they can run.
Yeah.
Like we thought that we could run because we could, us Australians, but they over there they would like every first day back was running in the forest. And I was like, oh my God, we need to go into the forest again.
What the fuck?
So it was like 5K run in the forest. That was our recovery. 5K run in the forest. Yeah. And
These new footballers have it easy.
Yeah, seriously.
Can you take us back to maybe, like I remember my first month in those environments in another country, learning a new language and different types of personalities, getting like little things, getting locked inside your room, little things that are like,
Is it worth it?
Starting to think, is it worth? Do you remember what your mindset was those first, let's say 2 weeks?
yeah. The first couple of weeks were definitely hard, but I would say the first few years for me were tough. Like I was still a kid from Adelaide that with my mum used to make my bed and cook for me and do everything for me. So all of a sudden, I moved away from Liège, went to Antwerp, and I had to actually start to cook for myself. I didn't know how to cook. And then the players, what it's like. They don't care about you. Like you're there, you have to be better than them, or else you're not playing. Then no one's going to go, oh, are you feeling down today? Or are you a little bit tired? Or are you a little bit sick?
The team psychs over there if you want to get through it. Like
there was no team psych.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That doesn't happen.
Contacting your parents and family.
Reverse
back then.
charge.
Reverse charge. What was what was it? The one in Australia?
I don't know, but every time, I also had a girlfriend back home that I would call back, and then it would always be reverse charge. Half my her wages definitely went on the telephone or phone bills.
Yeah.
So people forget there was no internet, there's no YouTube, there's no on the YouTube, but there's nothing. There's nothing social media wise. So ringing home was a big deal, and so there was letters being written. I wasn't a very good writer, so I didn't write too many letters. So it was tough. So that's why I say the first 2.5 years were, I'd sometimes cry at night going, what the hell, how am I going to get through certain periods? If you got injured or you're not playing or lack of form, who do you turn to if you're a lack of form?
I think that's the biggest thing that people don't understand when you do go overseas. Like obviously social media now is so much easier to maintain in contact with your friends and family, where back then would have been so hard. And when you get in those moments of injuries or whatever, would have been so tough.
Yeah, it was tough. Again, and this is the lucky thing that I had, Aurelio Vidmar was playing in Belgium at the time. So every day off we would catch up.
Yeah.
So we'd catch up for lunch or spend the whole day. And I could sort of speak to him about the difficulties and he would, understand because he had been through it and his experiences. So I remember to show that I was there and I was going to compete, there was in Antwerp, there was this younger, he was from Belgium, but it was from that area, didn't speak much English. He was kicking me in training, like just booting the shit out of me. And I'm like, oh, this guy again, he's coming for me. And then he would say something to me in Flemish, and I didn't understand. And then I go, you know what? I'm going to have to show that I belong. So next time he came for me, as soon as I saw him coming, I just went whack, and I whacked him across the lips, and he's bleeding and he's losing it. And he comes at me again, I just go whack again. And then from then on, he didn't say a word to me,
Love that.
didn't come near me. And then the other players respected me. And I don't say that you should do that, but I had to show that I'm not going to fear anyone here.
Every
I'm
footballer
here.
has that story.
That's a great point you make, because I feel like even when we were overseas in Argentina at River, it was so common that new player comes in, they come in first day, hide their clothes. And they're freaking out. They're wondering where's their stuff, you know? And it's such a common thing in football when like a new player comes in that they kind of get like through that bully, that stage, and then they need to get over that or stand up for themselves.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
then it's like, all right, he's on board.
Yeah.
So going to Antwerp, was that easier because you were a bit more used to the Belgium? I know they're two different regions, but did you find it easier like going there because you'd settled in a bit more?
Yeah, it was a little bit easier, and it was easier because I started to make my first, team appearances. I was 17, came on the first game, scored. So it sort of like gives you a little bit of not only belief within yourself, but the rest of the group, the fans sort of go, okay, he's an Australian, but he can play. And at the time, Australians were pretty well respected in Belgium. Yep. Still frowned upon because we're Aussies, kangaroos, they would call us. But we had a number of Aussies that did well. Eddie Krinčević, Frank Farina, Aurelio Vidmar, Graham Arnold, Paul Ocon. Yep. So we had a pretty good name then.
Were you guys playing in Europe when you were at Antwerp?
Yeah, just started. Well, we did play in Europe. We played against Newcastle.
That would have been a good Newcastle team back then, no?
Andy Cole was there.
Andy Cole, wow.
Yeah, they had some good players. I didn't end up playing in that game, but our team was quite strong in Belgium in that period.
So, again, we could spend hours on each club and all that. Your next move, Cremonese, how did you find that? Again, what was different between Italy and Belgium? Like, what was the difference there?
Belgium football was big.
Yep.
Italy football was life at that stage. Serie A was the biggest league in the world.
Yep.
I thought I was going there as an Italian, because I had an Italian passport, but I was still only classed as a foreigner. So in every team, you were only allowed 3 foreigners back then. And I moved in around December or January, something like that. And my team was well and truly in relegation. So there was 18 teams and 4 teams got relegated. So if you're pretty much outside that top 10, you're in relegation fight.
I think you were the youngest foreign player in Serie A up until like recently. I think
to score the quickest goal.
Was it? Yeah,
to score the quickest goal on debut. So I started against Bari. And scored. So after a few minutes, or is it, that one was Piacenza. Anyway, I scored. I started really well, and so I thought, okay, this is good. But then I soon realised when the results weren't going well and I wasn't scoring, the first one to get the blame was the striker and the foreigner.
Really?
And you're both.
And I didn't know how to deal with it. I was still only 19,
Yeah.
and I struggled. I really did. The time in Italy, I really struggled because in Italy, when you're doing well, you can do what you want and go out and even go for coffee and go for ice creams, or if you want to go for a drink and have a good meal. When you're doing bad, don't set foot out of that house in your region that you're playing in because you will get abused. And so I didn't know how to take that. I'm getting like when you're going into a restaurant and the waiter's looking at you like you're an idiot, or the chef doesn't want to serve you, and you go, what?
You're kidding. Was it that bad?
But after someone explained to me the reason why, and I sort of get it. Cremona is a little town. So Cremonese, if they played Serie A, would have Juventus come into town, Milan into town. And so that's good for the economy, good for restaurants, bars, everything. And when you're getting relegated, now you're having, a Regina coming into town. They're not travelling from Reggio Calabria up to... So the economy dies a little bit. So that's their livelihood that they're worried about as well.
Their livelihood depends on
That's incredible.
Yeah. And it depends on you to score goals. Yeah.
That's right. So they're going like... And then we got police escorted out of our own stadium once.
With the Italian defenses like that in that period, that's renowned for some great names and players. As a striker, young striker, was that like an initiation period and brutal?
We played against AC Milan, so they had at the back they had Baresi, who's probably one of the all-time great Italian defenders, Paolo Maldini, Costa Curta. And then in midfield, they had like the best players. You had Baggio, Savicevic, Boban. You had all these players. But I remember playing against Baresi, and I felt like I'm on here, and he would just lead me into an area that like I couldn't cause damage, or that the ball's coming up to me, and he just little nudge that I'll get off balance, but it's not enough to give a foul. And it was like I've never like played in a game going, I had zero chance of scoring.
Is it the dark arts of what they do, or is it like a mental warfare? Like what is it?
It was just the Italian smarts of knowing how to defend. And at that time, Milan were virtually unplayable. In terms, they didn't concede chances, didn't concede goals. Capello was there at that time. They had an unbelievable team, and I was just like, wow, they're very good.
I think Maldini said if you have to like lunge for a tackle, you've already made a mistake.
Yeah.
Like if you have to go and slide tackle someone, you've made a mistake. Your positioning's not good enough.
Yeah.
That's how well they read it. Like especially him. Like it didn't even look like he was breaking a sweat or getting out of the first gear because he read the game so well.
Yeah,
like,
he was so
nuts.
good. Like physically, he was a beast as well.
Yep.
So he had everything. So he started off as a fullback and then he played as a centre back. But he had everything, all the attributes you need for a top world class defender. He was tall, he was strong, lightning quick, technically very good, and very hard. So he's a winner. And plus, he was good looking.
Which Italian wasn't back then? I feel like the whole team
Did
was
you find it easier after your experiences in Italy playing against some of those defences when you went to the UK?
I actually, not that I found it easy, you never find it easy, but I learned that in Italy you had to make 2 or 3 movements to get away from a defender. Wow. So then when you're doing it in a league that's probably not as renowned for their defending, it's easier to find space. So the Italians, even though I probably didn't have the best of times there, it actually helped me develop my game.
Right.
And what about mentally, John? Like, it sounds like you were just sort of thrown in the deep end with a lot of this stuff, and you're still quite young, at all these.
We're not even kind of covering how young he is playing at this level.
It's quite unbelievable that you're so young, and you're going overseas and you're having these experiences. What do you think it was about, I guess, your personality that you feel helped you survive in those scenarios? Did you feel like more mature than your counterparts, your mates at home that were your age?
Yeah,
outside of football?
I felt more mature than most of my friends that I grew up with, because I had already life experiences of living away from home,
elbowing people,
living in different countries, having to actually, and sometimes people want to do wrong by you, so you have to get street smart pretty quickly.
This is the other thing that I wanted to say. You're kind of renowned for being a very nice person, which, as a footballer, like everyone says, you need to be a bit of a.
Yeah.
I won't use the
word.
word.
Did you have white line, like a bit of Ross about you at all?
Yeah. I reckon I have more of Ross about me than what people think.
Yeah.
You had to. You had to, especially growing up in the era that we were playing in. There was no VAR, so like defenders, they would like behind play, step on your toe, spit on you, do whatever it took to put you off your game. So you had to be a little bit. A couple of times I got caught in terms of I got a red card in Italy. It was in Serie B against Salernitana. I remember I had my wife. She came to the game because we got married really young, but she had family down near Naples, and this guy's kicking me on the corner, and I thought that no one could see, and I just went bang, you asshole, and the line was like that. Oh my God.
He's got me.
He got me. A red card comes out, and I'm walking underneath the stand, and this is the main stand where all their ultras were, and getting cigarette lighters, coins pelted at me. So, but I had to have a little bit of that to survive what as it's a dog eat dog world. And we had to survive and to actually get through certain situations. You had to have a little bit of it. But I also know that I went through some dark times as well as a player. When you're going through this bad period in Italy, you don't know how to deal with it. The media's smashing you. Like papers, they mark you out of 10. You know, some of your teammates are getting 7, 8, and you're getting a 2.
Yeah.
You're like, oh.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't bother you. But
it does when you're that age.
Yeah.
I guarantee. Yeah, I agree.
And then all the local radios are just, he's rubbish. He shouldn't be playing. We should get rid of him. And then you got not that I'm listening to it. People are telling me what they're saying.
I take it to heart when someone says they disagree with my take on the podcast, let alone the whole Italian media after you. But so it doesn't go that well there. How does Pompey come about then?
But Pompey was a blessing because, again, I was suffering a little bit in Italy, and also I felt that my form was like going backwards, and the confidence is low. So I needed to take a step back to go forwards again. And at the time, Terry Venables was our national team coach.
Wow.
And he was the chairman and owner of Portsmouth, and he goes, "Why don't you come to Pompey?" And
wait, did you say he was the manager of England and the chairman?
No, manager of Australia.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say
of
right.
Australia at the time.
Yeah.
But he was also the chairman of Portsmouth.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Can you do that?
Conflict of interest.
Yeah,
No, I mean,
it was a conflict of interest, definitely.
Back
But
then,
for
didn't
me,
matter.
it was about playing football.
And with the Socceroos coach. Like, that's not bad.
International club.
Get minutes play.
So I went to Portsmouth, and I started off again really well and scoring a lot of goals. The Pompey fans were amazing. Yeah, I loved it. If they saw you trying and saw that you gave your all, they're backing you.
What's the main fan there? Is his name Big John or something? It's Big John.
The one that rings the bell.
Yeah.
Well, so
That's the one
is it-
team I used to love.
So is that different to Italy?
Yeah.
So in England, you try. In Portsmouth, you try your best.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
In Italy,
In
no,
Italy,
you better score.
You better score. You could be having the worst game. Your touch could be going there to the door away. But if you scored a goal, you done your job.
Inzaghi style.
You know what? English people love workhorses.
Yeah, bad.
They don't care. Like they might even cheer harder if you crunch someone than if you score.
Well, I
Like it
remember
gets like
at
that.
the start, like I'm asking the ball, in certain areas because I want to combine, and the guy puts one in the channel,
Not
turn
getting
him
there,
round, and they going, "Why aren't you running?"
I'm not going to get there.
Did you find that? Because I'd say you're a footballer, but actually you compliment, like you said this the other week on Paramount about Botic and Ibasuki, that they're the players that they can score at any moment, which you kind of were like that. But in from a Premier League standpoint, did you find stylistically that hard to adjust to? Because it's very Route 1 in some regards. It's a fight.
I actually enjoyed England in terms of it was pretty open.
Okay.
So we there was back then there was a lot of chances created.
Okay.
So when I was at Portsmouth, the first year, like I said, we're doing well, and then all of a sudden we had a lot of Australians there. Craig Foster was there, Robbie Ennis, and all that. But then Terry Venables left, and the new owner came in, and also a new coach, manager, and he got rid of all the Australians and wanted to get rid of me, and I had nowhere else to go. So at the end of the off season, he goes, "You're going to come back. You're going to be my 7th choice striker, so you're really not going to play." Yeah, it was ridiculous. I'm going to get all these strikers in, and the young ones from this one, and I go, okay. I'll come and do pre-season.
This was the championship back then, wasn't it?
Championship.
Yeah.
So I ended up going back and doing pre-season, and at first I was like, do a little bit of training, then running on the side by myself, and then a trialist would come in and he wasn't good enough, so then I'd join in, and then there would be a little bit like that. So then we started playing friendly games, and I'd get 5 minutes, come on, score a goal, then get 10 minutes, come on, score a goal. I just had this like hunger that I'm going to show him that I deserve to be playing. Come the start of the season, I'm playing, I'm starting, and I scored 17 goals in all comps by December.
Wow.
And then I got sold to Coventry.
Well, yeah, it's like I'm looking here.
That's ridiculous.
26 goals in 60 games.
Yeah.
That's nearly a
But
goal every
17
2
of them
games.
in,
And how
in
old are you?
That's
John, how old are
crazy.
you there?
I was 22, turning 23 that stage. So, but I'd already dealt with setbacks.
Yeah.
So I that resilience again. You're building resilience and building people that again don't believe in you. How do you do it? You can look for an excuse.
Yeah.
Or you can go, I just need to fight through this, and again that was
So when he said your 7th choice, you've gone, I'm going to try still.
yeah. I had the opportunity to go to other clubs that were low in the championship, but they were, in my opinion, not good clubs. So it was like going, okay, I don't really want to go, and no disrespect to Stockport at the time, but I didn't want to go to Stockport. That was my options. And I go, I'm going to try and play here and prove that I should be playing here, because the supporters were great. They really like embraced the way that I played the game, and so I wanted to do well there. And so by that November, we ended up. I got sold to Coventry, but it was funny. Alan Ball goes, "I will get my agent to do." He was the manager at the time. We'll get my agent to do the deal to Coventry. And I'm going, what?
He's getting a kickback? What?
Back in
The 90s, man. Yeah.
So you went from being 7th choice to the Prem,
Yeah.
which is
That's a title, Jerome. Well done, son.
Was there a conversation with who was the coach? That
Alan Ball.
Alan Ball.
Alan Ball was
when you were leaving.
Yeah, you know what? I ended up, I got along with him after. It wasn't like I didn't. Alan Ball won a World Cup in '66. And he'd let us know quite a few times.
I've watched that so many times. It's my English.
So, but I didn't. I didn't hold a grudge. I just knew that I had to play for him, and I'll just do what I had to do to play.
So let's quickly touch on the Premier League, because I want to spend a while on Osasuna, but it says 98 to 2001. So you are dealing with absolute peak Arsenal and United in the same league.
Chelsea coming.
Chelsea were coming.
We were coming through,
They
yeah.
had Zola. They had all these
Vialli.
Dennis
Vialli.
Wise, Zola.
Yeah, I think Vialli just retired at that stage, and
Okay.
Vialli started to coach.
Okay.
They had a top side, like a really good side. Man United were just about to win the treble.
Yep.
Arsenal were virtually invincible.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was a good period in terms of some of the sides in the Premier League, and it started again. It started well, but then I got injured at the end of that, beginning of that second season, and I was out injured for virtually a whole season. And so again, this is going through I didn't know that I was going through depressive states, but I didn't want to wake up in the morning. Yeah. I'm like, oh. And I don't know. I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel here. Like it's just nothing. My injury's not getting any better. Get back, break down. Get back, break down.
Were you staying in Coventry, or were you staying in a bigger city?
No. I was staying in a little town called Leamington Spa, a beautiful town. Coventry is quite rough.
Yep.
So none of the players lived in Coventry.
Right.
No disrespect, Coventry.
Yeah, well, I love Cov as well. Cov
If
fans.
you are injured that whole time, and you're living in a place where there's not much to do, not a mega city.
But you know what? It's even if there's something to do, your life is football.
Yeah.
So you're taking away something that you love doing. People go, oh, but you're still getting paid.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I didn't care about I'm getting paid. I want to be playing, and just. Like you have your difficult moments when you're playing, lack of form or not selected or whatever. But there's nothing worse than being injured. There's definitely nothing worse. Yeah. And then, so to get over an injury is already you have to have some sort of. And at the time, again, you're looking for answers. You're looking for people to help you. Okay, can I set little targets? Can I set little goals to when I can get back? How's my body going to be when I get back? So I had a problem with my hamstring that it ended up changing my whole running gait. I went from a certain style of running to another style altogether that I wasn't as explosive. So then my game has to change a little bit. But someone, I can't remember who told me, they go, instead of just being down all the time, because I was, why don't you go to games, watch games and plays in your position? Watch a Van Nistelrooy playing up front. Watch his movement. Watch the best strikers in the league. How are they moving? What Shearer? Because Shearer at the time was at Newcastle. What does he do that he does so well? How does he hold up the ball? How does he run into space? How is he moving in the box? And then so when I got back, I was like going, okay, my game again had to change, but it improved in other ways.
That's actually great advice, because I remember when I was at River, the technical director, we would always ask him, what do we need to do? How do I get better? And he would always say, go watch the first team.
Yeah.
See who plays in your position, because if you want to be there, that's who you got to play like, because he's there for a reason. So that advice is
It's very relatable
crazy.
though for like a lot of football. Everyone hates injuries, but imagine being injured in the Premier League. Also in England, it's only football people talk about, so you can't really escape it. Like everywhere you look, it's football, football, football.
And I also learned how quickly someone and people can forget about you. Like,
Football fans are fickle.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I was like playing and doing quite well and scoring some goals, not always starting, but scoring goals. And then all of a sudden, not playing. In the first month, you go to the game and people are going, oh, hey, John, good luck. We'll see you on the park soon. To the second month, a couple less. The third month, a couple less. After a year, no one recognised you.
Well, it doesn't help that you're fighting relegation as well with the club. Add that onto it, so everyone's not in the best mood as it already is.
Who was the just quickly, maybe before you jump on Osasuna, who was the best player you played against in the Prem and favourite stadium? Because the atmospheres in England is for me always crazy.
The atmospheres are unbelievable. I loved going to Newcastle to
St.
play.
James.
Yeah, St. James. Like there was like you walk in and you look up and the fans are like fanatical.
They're on top of you.
Yeah,
it's
they are
so
on
steep.
top of you. It's such a good stadium.
Did you bag one there?
No, I didn't.
He's
score
bagging at
there.
Spurs though.
Yeah, that was my first goal in the Premier League
There you
against Spurs.
That's scoring a goal in the Premier League. That's different, man.
I scored a few goals against Spurs. I don't know.
More.
I scored against Man United, but at our ground when Jaap Stam was playing. Jaap Stam was like incredible. I have to say there was so many good players back then in the Premier League, but I wouldn't say that there was like when I played in Spain that you had like a superstar that really stood out, and there was a couple there in Spain. But in the Premier League, they were good players. Like Beckham could he crossed the ball from anywhere, and that Dwight York and Andy Cole getting on the end of it. And you had Teddy Sheringham that wasn't always starting, and then you had all the Ryan Giggs. That Man United team was...
You could name drop so many players, actually.
Yeah,
just think,
Scholes.
you've just gone for the front line of Man United, not even the league.
Scholes, Roy Keane, all these players that you go, they were incredible players and consistently great. They weren't just so Di Canio was one of those players that when we played against them, we were getting beat, and Di Canio came alive and started doing flicks and tricks. You couldn't stop him. Like he was that good, but he wasn't like as consistent as those world class players.
Right. There you
That's crazy. So Coventry end up getting relegated. How does the move to Spain come about? There's so much I want to touch on with Spain, but because that's sort of like, did you know much about Osasuna? Did you know about the region? It's Pamplona, right?
Yeah, Pamplona.
Like, did you know about the region? Did you know where you were going? Or were you like, look, they're playing La Liga.
You've got to some strange places already at this point of your career.
I had no idea about Osasuna.
Yeah.
I had no idea about their history. I had no idea where it was. I didn't know much about Spain at that stage. I always liked the Spanish league, watching it, because it was so good. Watching Barcelona, Real Madrid, Valencia, Deportivo La Coruña at that time were amazing. Sevilla, Real Betis, they had good teams and good plays within those teams. But it came about because I already played Championship, and I go, because Crystal Palace came in for me at the end of that season, Steve Bruce. And he goes
back around then still.
And I remember him, he picked up the phone. He said, "Look, John, I know Spain sounds great, but it's not as good as what everyone makes it out to be. You don't always get paid on time." And he had good points, because there were certain clubs in Spain that didn't always pay you on time. But I was like, I want to try Spanish football. Also, my injuries played a part. So in England, because we were playing every 3 days, physically, I don't think my body could cope with it. Then I was going to Spain that were playing, Sunday to Sunday. I was like, okay, I think my body might cope with that a little bit better.
How old were you at this time? Like 26 or something?
Yeah, I would have been 25, 26.
Did you feel like when your move to Spain, you were getting into that space of your game? Yeah. You're there, you're arriving,
I felt that not only I knew my game, I felt that I knew that I had to be mentally strong in certain situations, and I had dealt with a lot
Yeah.
in those previous years. I was ready for a move to Spain because I didn't speak any Spanish. My wife was pregnant at the time. And we go into a country we got zero idea about. So Pamplona is known for the running of the bulls, but it's in an area very much a Basque area. It's not completely Basque, but half of it is. I didn't know what Basque meant.
What does that mean?
I don't know
It's
what
the northern
Basque,
region.
Basque country?
Yeah,
Basque
Basque,
country.
yeah.
So
It's fucking like beautiful, right?
Yeah, but at the time there was still ETA were bombing trains and so there was
They wanted independence from Spain.
That's right.
Yeah.
And there was a lot going on, and I had no idea. So when I went there, and I go, you're Spanish. You go, don't call me Spanish.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's like
Or don't call me,
Catalonia.
Okay.
The Catalans are also the same. That I'm not Spanish. I'm
Catalonian first,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So it was, and so someone said to me, never talk about politics or religion at dinner. That's fair.
Yeah, even the last time I was in Barcelona recently, there was a thing going on, and it's still
Always, yeah.
a thing to this day with the Basque and with the Catalan region.
What was the beauty of Spanish football? Because for me, that's when we were growing up, around the time you would have been at Osasuna, that was getting played a lot in Australia. So we got to see a lot of it. And it looked like the funnest league or the most pure football. Was that actually how it felt playing there? Was it?
Yeah. So I felt at the time Spain was a mix between Italy and England. Like it was not as defensive minded. It's still, they were very, very well structured like the Italians, but not as defensive minded, and attack minded, but probably not as open as what the English were. So you had this great balance of good football being played by most teams, and teams that are trying to play. You also had the pressures of the fans, but they weren't as brutal as I would say as the Italians in the sense that they still want to see good football. So the Italians didn't care about the football; they just cared about the result. Whereas the Spanish were, we want to win, but we want to see you playing a certain way. And so the Basque area, and I'll say Osasuna a little bit, they're a little bit of both, but they want to see you run and fight. And so if you're doing that, a little bit like the English, they respect you and will support you. And so I felt that was a good place. Plus, it was a very family-orientated club. I loved going into training. I loved being around the group. I loved being around the Spanish people. So I felt more at home in Spain than probably anywhere.
Can I ask you about the differences? We watched, I don't know if you've seen it, a Copa 90 documentary on Once in a Lifetime, the Argentina World Cup win a few years ago. And they explained the reason why Argentinian fans or football fans are the way they are in terms of culturally and societally, what makes them like that. What were and you said basically Spain kind of sits in between England and Italy in terms of the way they see football. Did you feel that culturally with the people that reflected the way they liked their football played?
Yeah.
And the differences?
Definitely. And it depends on where as well. So if it depends on which part of Spain you're playing in. There's certain parts that they just want to be like they want flair. Probably more down south. I don't know if it's the down in Seville, the flamenco, like the dancing, all that sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah, true.
Whereas up north of Spain, they're hard workers and they're known for their hard work. So you have to reflect that in your game as well. So you'll see a lot of the coaches that do well up north in the Basque clubs are from that area. They're not from the other parts of Spain. They're from that area. Because they understand what the supporters want, what they're looking, and it's the same. You see a lot of good Basque coaches, for instance, that go elsewhere and do well because they're just hard-working people.
Yeah.
In general.
Which club in that region only signs players with a Basque
Athletic
background?
Bilbao.
It's Bilbao, yeah.
Yeah, Athletic Bilbao.
Yeah, so you either have to have
Still to this day.
you either have to have a grandparent who's Basque, be born there, or a parent from the region. I think they're like the three markers for, and they still do very well.
I have no idea.
About the Basque first.
Yeah, and they've never been relegated. They've always had.
That's
like
why
a lot
you're
of success. So Real Sociedad is also a Basque club. Yep. So when I started going there, they only just started signing Spanish players.
Yep.
So they would only sign Basque and foreigners. whereas Athletic Bilbao haven't changed their way the whole time. But Athletic Bilbao, what they do, they've got a great academy. But if they see a player, say Osasuna, that's coming through, Javi Martinez, who ended up playing for Spain and played for Bayern Munich, he got sold. He was there when I was there. I hadn't seen him play yet. I don't even think I saw him train. He got sold for €7 million. He was 16 years old. He went to Athletic Bilbao, and then from there he went to Bayern Munich and had the career he had. So, but they will go and scout and get the best players from everywhere around that region and pay overs for them because they need to be successful.
It's a hotbed.
But when they go into that club, they know what the club represents. And it is, so they used to call it the cathedral when we used to go play there. They've actually changed the stadium. But it was, I've had some good moments there and bad moments. I'll talk about the bad moment first. We were 3-0 up. And we felt that we'd won this game. There was 30 minutes to go. They scored one goal, and their crowd just went wham. Like, talk about atmospheres.
What?
And they just went, and you just felt that these guys grew on another level. They all of a sudden they felt, oh, we're going to win this game.
We're on their ass.
They beat us 4-3. I never walked off the pitch going, what the hell is happening there? Like, it was just felt like wave after wave after wave. But there was the fans that was driving them home. And then another time with Osasuna, we were there, and it was to save us from relegation. That was my first year that we were there. And Osasuna fans hate Athletic Bilbao fans because they say, you take all our young best players. And I scored in the last few minutes to equalise to keep us safe.
What?
And again, like, so that was another bit of atmosphere that you go, it was at their stadium, but we had like 5,000 of our fans there. It was amazing.
After that, saving a club from relegation, did you feel, walking through the streets, did you feel that admiration?
Well, that night out I did.
I do want to ask, because that just on that point, good point, that era of like the Galacticos and Barcelona being who they are, Spain was the flashy, the rich. It was that scene. Were you partying a lot? Were you shopping a lot? Was it big?
Because the clock's different there too, right? So I don't know if you're playing games later or early, but everything's later.
10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, then there were some games at 5 in the afternoon. It just depends on which game that you had. I wouldn't say that our team wasn't that flashy. Yeah. We weren't flashy. We couldn't afford to be flashy, to be honest. We had to keep our feet on the ground. Yeah. And also the area that we were in,
couldn't do it.
You couldn't do it. Yeah. You're not really. It's not a flashy area. It's a hard-working city and region. But the Galacticos, like you look at the players they had and the cars that they would have had, and they had all those.
Well, they were more than footballers back then, weren't they? Like
you beat them 3-0.
Yes,
you beat them 3. Was that at home or away?
Away at the Bernabeu.
Wow!
Yeah.
And you came on as a sub.
Nah, I started that one.
You started that game.
Yeah.
Just for those listening at home, this is who was playing. Beckham, Figo, Zidane, Raul, Ronaldo, Roberto Carlos. They started. Iker Casillas They all started. How did that feel walking out of there? Did you just feel like we've just done a robbery here, or like, no, we deserve that?
No, to be honest, we deserved the win. It was one of those ones that their season had just started. There was 5 games left, I think, after this game here. And their season was starting to hit a bit of trouble. They were top. And then they started to lose a few games, and then there was speculation that the coach wasn't going to stay, and it was Beckham's first year, and all this stuff was going on, and we were on the rise. We were like challenging at that stage that we could make Europa League, and that we were pretty strong, and we ended up winning 3-0, and after the game we were on the bus back to Pamplona, and we were going, oh my God, we just beat Real Madrid like at the Bernabeu 3-0. So we asked the coach, oh, can we stop and get some drinks to bring on the bus? We're drinking and having a good time. We get into Pamplona having a good time. We lost the next 5 games.
Oh, wow.
So that proved the point. Don't get carried away with yourself.
Yeah.
Every footballer that I've spoken to says a similar thing of like, oh, when you played against them, were you starstruck? And most footballers say, nah, you just get on with your job. Was there any?
Surely
there a little bit?
I guess you've been playing at the top for a while then.
Yeah, I know you're used to it.
No, you're not starstruck. What you will say, like there's certain moments in games you go, did he just do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Like Ronaldinho he was receiving the ball. He had one of our defenders like charging at him. He couldn't see him because he's had his back to play, and he just went boom, flicked the ball over his head, went around the other side and received the ball and kept going. And you're going, did he just do that? Like that. Ronaldinho was one of those players that you go, he was on his day. You go, he would do something that you've never seen on the football.
Were you the only Aussie in the La Liga at that point?
Yeah.
At this point, also, I think I don't know if this is true, so you can correct me. But were you the first Aussie to score in all the top 3 leagues?
Yeah.
Serie, Premier League, and La Liga.
Yeah.
That's a flex, bro.
Great stat.
I don't think you can give a trophy for that, but that's got to be like. There's got to be like some sort of medallion.
Make one.
Yeah, that's clocking the game a bit, you know.
I know we're going to go into your coaching career a bit later, but like now you're talking to young players and this thing of being starstruck and knowing in the other dressing room there's this player and that player and this player. What was your mindset in that situation? Let's say you're going out against Real Madrid. Did you have a different mindset at all? Did that enter your head before you going out on the park?
No, we actually had the reverse of that. Was like, you know what, they're going to hate playing against us because we're going to make life so hard to them. So we know and we knew back in that period there that Real Madrid hated coming to our stadium because our fans were they were so like involved in the game and hated Real Madrid. Like one of the teams they hate most in La Liga is Real Madrid. They don't mind Barcelona so much, but the Real Madrid they just hated now for whatever reason. I think some of it's political, some of it's a little bit because they were the showy.
The Kings team.
Yeah, that's right. So it would go, you know what, Beckham, Roberto Carlos, we don't care. We weren't starstruck. It was the mindset of we're going to make this game that they're going to hate and not want to come back here again.
Yeah.
Just on your game as a striker, and particularly going through this period up to this point, what do you think it was about your instincts or yourself, whatever you trained, to be able to have that natural goal scoring? Because I feel like when you don't have that, it pisses you off seeing someone just find the back of the net, but at the same time, they don't understand the actual mindset that person has to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think that first of all, the mindset you have to have is that, can I receive the ball in a position that I can score? So, like, if I'm making a run to the near post, is the ball going to arrive, that I'm 4 meters in front of the near post that I can't score? So, first of all, then your timing of your run is wrong. Second of all is like, how can I see the ball, see my defender? So how can I lose my defender? And I always talk about strikers going, like, even if it's a through ball, if you're in the area that you're making a run that you cannot score in that final third, don't make the run into that area, because then all you're doing is and when you're playing against better defenders, they're not going to follow you. They just go and let him have it out there.
Like if you're making a run towards a corner flag, for example, right away from goal. Yeah.
And then other things are like, your body shape when you're receiving the ball, the where you're facing. Can I finish it first time? Because when you get to a high level in the box, you're not really taking more than one touch. It's like, I need to finish this. And so all those things, it comes with, again, who you're playing with, your teammates. So I knew certain players that loved crossing the ball to the back post. So I know before they're going to cross it, I'll try and lose my marker, that I'll free up space for myself at the back post. There'll be some others that will whip the ball early near post. So I knew that I'll try and take my defender away and dart across him. Those certain like little traits you don't learn from a coach. It's very hard for a coach to... So
you're thinking all the time, like you're doing a lot of thinking. Even if you're not running, you're always thinking where to be.
Yeah.
At what time.
It's instinct as well.
I was going to say, so on instincts, right? Because instincts is almost, it's unconscious, right? Your reaction is unconscious. And we always talk about switching off, and let's say the keeper saves it, the defenders switch off, and then the striker's there, the instinct is there. Are you doing anything that is conscious in that situation to make yourself ready for that rebound?
I'll probably not. Yeah, I am, because again, I've watched, but I also got told. So when a player, say for instance, a left footer, he strikes the ball. A lot of time when he mishits the ball, he's hitting it across the goal. So if he mishits it, so I've scored a few goals that I'm here. I know that he's not going to play me the ball, so I see that he's shooting. Then automatically I'm just running in that area. So if he hits it well, the keeper's parrying it, and I might get to tap him. If he shanks it, and I've scored a few of these, and the guy's shots run off like he set it up. But if he shanks it, I'm in a position to go. And a lot of defenders aren't switched on for that because they're looking still at the ball. They're not looking at that. But I found that. Yes, consciously, but I had trained that for so many years. That every time I would follow in out of 100 shots, and you might only get 1 or 2 rebounds or 3 rebounds. But if I didn't follow in those 100, I wouldn't score those 3 goals. You know,
I heard a good bit of commentary this morning. They were talking about Nicholas Jackson's form, how he's getting all these chances, but he's just not finishing them. And they're like, some strikers just need to realise that as long as you're getting the chances, the goals will come. If you're not getting the chances, there's a problem with your game. But if you're getting the chances and you're in the right positions, then the goals will come. But like you just said, you've just got to be there.
When you're not feeling good as well physically, you're not following up. You're trying to save a little bit of your legs, or you're not. So and so when you're feeling good physically, you're going, I know that I'm going to get there, or I'm going to be there. And when goals are going in, you just feel the balls coming to you. It's one of those ones that it's hard to explain unless you've played as a striker, that you just go, I know the ball's coming in this area. I just know it. But when you're going through a bad period, it's like you're making the run, but the ball's not falling for you there, and then you stop sort of believing that you're going to get on the end of it, and all you need is that one little thing to go for you again. And it might be a goal that you finish in training that gives you confidence that, okay, I got my confidence back now. I got my timing back. And then the next game you end up scoring.
What was your longest goalless period?
And mentally, how did you...
Yeah, that was when I was younger, I would say.
Did you even have many goalless periods?
Yeah, no, I did. Of course I did.
Right, the honesty.
I think like Italy was a long one. I can't remember how many games, but that was long. There was a period in Spain I went through, but I knew how to deal with it a little bit better. I got booed by my own fans. But I knew that, and my coach was good. My coach kept on playing me. He didn't leave me out. I know that you can get through this. And then all it took was so that I was getting a lot of sort of bad publicity at this stage. And this is already after having a good year the year before, but they can quickly turn on you. But then one journalist, for some reason, wrote a really good story about me saying, yeah, but he's not scoring, but he's giving us this. And the fans went, okay. And then as soon as the fans turned, sort of my fortunes turned a little bit, and I started scoring again. It's funny how that can work.
Football smart. Some nations have it.
It's almost like in my mind, there's like 3 games going on in the game of football. There's all the players, then there's like the goalkeeper who's kind of playing a different game, and the strikers are also kind of playing a different game. Where, for example, as a coach, if my striker's going through a goalless period, I actually don't know how to relate to that experience and how to talk to him in that situation. And you'd be so valuable now to your strikers.
I've sort of there's certain times, and I remember doing this to Jamie McLaren. He wasn't too happy with me at that stage, but I'd gone through experiences. I've gone through a bit of a bad spell. And when I was in Brisbane with Jamie, he had already scored quite a few goals, but he went, I think, about 4 or 5 games without scoring, and I could just see it weighing on his shoulders. In training, he wasn't moving the same, and so I decided to leave him out. And the next game, but I told him, I said, I'm leaving you out for this reason. I'm going to take the pressure away from you. You're going to come on, and you're going to do well. And I believe that when you come on, you'll want to score. You'll feel that you're going to score. I go, but you're not starting the game that the pressure's on you. And he did. He scored. And I remember when I went up to him after the game, he was still angry with me.
Yeah, that's Jamie.
But I didn't mind because I got what I thought we'd get from Jamie. Then he went on a good run again. So I've been able to relate with strikers through difficult periods because I've been there as a striker.
What was we haven't even touched on Socceroos or coaching yet.
Yeah, I got it.
Well, I just want to, what was the...
Is this one podcast?
Yeah.
Is it one episode?
Yeah.
People are going to turn off this guy's...
honestly, people, hey, good time to say like, comment, subscribe. We probably know what the most important goal you scored in your career, but what was your best goal? like in your eyes, and like
for when for the national team? Or
no,
in
just
general?
your actually club career. Well, it could be what do you and what do you deem your best goal as a striker? Because it could be a tap in.
You know what? Like I've scored a few goals that surprised myself. That I go, I'm hitting a volley with my right foot and cause left-footed, and one was against Blackburn for Coventry, and I did a stupid celebration, but.
What was the celebration?
I was watching wrestling.
Yes.
Smackdown.
And I saw someone go like that.
Hulk Hogan.
That looks good.
That looks good. And then after a game, and you'll see a photo of me going like that.
Yes.
All my players are going, what the hell was that all about? But it was a cross it was a shit cross. I can't remember who crossed me the ball, and it was against John Filan, who was playing at Blackburn. He's an Aussie goalkeeper, and I went to control with my left, and because it was bobbly, it sort of sat up, and I was on an angle. I just went bang, and I volleyed it into the opposite corner, and I go, wow, that's surprising. and then there was another time for Osasuna again with my right foot that I was facing. I was at the edge of the box. Someone played me a ball. I controlled it, but I was still facing sort of that way, and I had to turn and I hit a volley with my right foot. And again, like it surprised me that I could like time it that well. But it's all about timing. It doesn't matter what foot you are. It's about how you hit the ball, not how hard you hit it. If you get the timing right, as you know. Against Spurs, I hit a good goal.
Yeah?
yeah.
We got to somehow pull some of these up, man, at some point because I reckon he's got a lot of bangers, man.
Yeah. I was the other day I was on the La-Liga YouTube like the La-Liga YouTube page, and they've got like a section just for your goals on there. And
that's legendary.
There's some bangers.
That's legendary, bro. Like Ronaldinho, JA.
But I will say the ones that live with you in terms of the most important goals. Like so, I scored again like relegation, ones that were so important for the club at that stage and for your team. Derbies, like in local derbies.
What's the best derby you played in?
Oh, that's a great question.
That's a good question.
The Melbourne Derby might be up there.
Melbourne Derby, but Melbourne Derby was good. Like that was early on. They were
you were our villain.
Yeah,
I will never forget that first derby. And I'm like, okay, yep, Socceroos, like, absolute villain. I was like, this is crazy. And looking back, it was like one of the most wild games ever.
Yeah, so with that one there, we won the first game.
Yeah.
And then
Alex Terra.
Alex Terra.
What a guy, man.
He was a good player. And then with the next time we played you guys, we lost at Amy Park, Robbie Cruz. And I think that I didn't even get a touch that game. And then the next one, we were 2-0 down at it was Marvel. And we ended up coming back and drawing 2-2. I scored 2.
Yes, I remember I was there.
But the actual derbies are always the ones that you go, okay, like, I need to, I don't know, somehow you found something extra in derbies.
Yep.
And so I was lucky enough to play, I don't know if it was much of a derby for Aston Villa, but for Coventry it was a
Midlands.
big game.
Yep.
And we won 4-1 at Villa Park. I think it was the first time in, I don't know, 60-something years that we'd won there. Scored 2 in that game. See how I'm bringing up all the goals that I scored?
Yeah, I love that. You're trained, media trained. Yeah,
but the derbies are they're the goals that you remember a lot, and the special games. So the Spanish Cup final for Osasuna, we were losing to Real Betis 1-0. I was on the bench, came on and equalised in the last few minutes.
I think it was 84th or something.
Yeah, and we ended up losing in extra time. But if I go back to Spain tomorrow and go to Pamplona, they all talk about that. Because it was the first time we ever qualified for a Spanish Cup final, any major trophy.
How did you deal with such a high and then such a quick drop? Like scoring an equaliser with 5 minutes to go and then losing an extra time.
Yeah, that was hard. But the fans, like, they stayed after. Like, that was my last game for Osasuna.
Oh, wow.
And the fans, like, there was, say, it was the Vicente Calderon where Atletico Madrid used to play, and there was half the stadium were Real Betis and half the stadium were Osasuna. And they were just all in red. And after the game, they were just all stayed out there and singing for us and singing. And I was like, wow. Like, so they're not upset. They just, for them, it was an unbelievable day out. Yeah. It was something that they never experienced in their lifetime. And a lot of them said, you made our life. Like I remember going on the street, went back there 5 or 6 years ago, and they kept on, like, I went to the stadium, they were singing my name. I was going like, how they remember me, you know?
That's awesome.
And it was from that goal.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And you lost. Like, this
Yeah.
is the passion that, like, they were just so happy to have that experience because they never make finals.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Can you just touch on because I don't know if I've told you this, Rashid, but the first time I ever met JA, because I would love you to just touch on the A-League when you came back, because you had a decent time here with Central Coast, Sydney, and Melbourne Heart. But there was a period when I was at the AIS, the Joeys went to a World Cup, and so half the AIS went, and the coach of the AIS was the coach of the Joeys. So they told us older boys, if you can get an A-League club to go train with, go train with. I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I don't know how. I did probably 2 months out at Melbourne Heart.
Did
And
you?
yeah, and I was like 16 or 17. And bro, for me, it might not have been a big deal for him, but in that team was Skoko, Aloisi, Gerald Sibon, Alex Terra, Clint Bolton, Matt Thompson, Wayne Shroy.
Tell the Sipon story.
Yeah, I'll tell the Sibon story. This is funny. But they were all at that point in their career where they all knew their game, like inside out, to the point where JA might have been slowing down, but he knew how to like win every battle. He knew how to score. And I'm like trying to discover my game. So for me, every day was like a mental battle of like the level. Like Wayne Shroy, I don't know if he ever gets credit, but he'd hit balls and it was clean every single time he hit the ball. It was so nice to watch. Like little things like that. And I'm rambling, but to this point, I don't know if you remember what game it was. Gerald Sibon, he got sent off, and the second team had to go train. It was the day before a game with JVS, and he took the first 11 to go, and Gerald's gone over like trying to stay with you guys because he's like, looked over, he's like, fuck that. And anyway, Tez's Ante Milicic is calling out, Gerald, you got to come over here. Come on. Anyway, this is where I was like, fuck, there's layers and levels. He comes over and looks at me, Curtis Good, and I can't remember who else was there. He just goes... He goes, one day you're here. No, he goes, one day you're at the San Siro, the next you're here.
At Bandura.
And bro, we're at Bandura, and I just saw it. Fuck. But just on the A-League back then, what was your thoughts coming back, the level? How did you find it as like a bit of a homecoming?
Look, the level was, I think it was just starting. I think I arrived in year 3, I think it was.
So you came early.
Yeah, I came
Central
early.
Coast.
So the professionalism still wasn't quite there yet. And then it started to grow, and you could see it. And I sensed the improvement of like the league and the players in a short period. It got like really good in a short period. Because I don't know if you remember back then, we didn't always get our foreigners right. There was a lot of times that our foreigners were hit and miss. There was some that got it right and some that didn't get it right. Whereas I think now and for a long period, there's been majority of the time the foreigners are good. Because there's more research, there's more data about them and whatever else. But what I liked about it was that, we were getting good crowds. Like the crowds were good back then. And there was a period there that I would say probably till 15, 16, where you go, wow, like the football was at a level, the crowds were at a level. And I think the peak of it was that period there. Yeah. And I'll talk about how I remember that the peak was we played Wanderers in a semi-final and we're 3-0 up at Brisbane Roar and we ended up losing 5-4 in extra time.
Classic.
That noise at Pertec Parramatta Stadium was unbelievable. It was you can compare it to anywhere in the world and go, okay, this is football.
Yeah.
You go play against Melbourne Victory or Melbourne Heart, Melbourne Victory. The actual atmosphere at games. We're getting my first game as a head coach was for Melbourne Heart against Angers Melbourne Victory. There's 55,000 people.
Marvel.
Yeah.
This is what Fahid said as well. His first game, he didn't think Victory had a stadium. His first game was at Derby at Marvel.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
It was so good, and you could see the level of younger players really improving rapidly as well. And that was because there was a time where a lot of older players are coming back, and so there was probably no in between. So the younger players and the older players, they sort of had to try and bridge the gap pretty quickly. Yeah. Even though the younger players had way more legs than the older ones, but that ended up, you could see, got to a stage that we hit a real peak.
That hatred back then from the fans, and maybe hatred's a strong word, that competitiveness. I even remember I went to the Melbourne Heart Cedar and I was a massive Victory fan. I say was because I've culled it a bit, but I remember you did a talk once at a primary school and I was trying to act cool, And I'm like, oh, that's Joe Aloisi there. But I was like, no, well, he's Melbourne Heart. So, like, I can't associate. I don't want to ask for a photo or whatever. But back then, that's what it was like. And that's why I feel like the stadiums were so packed.
Yeah.
Even Mariners.
Yeah.
Mariners had some really good outings.
So the first year that I arrived back was with the Mariners. That we ended up playing Newcastle Jets in the grand final at the Allianz, and it was a full house. But in the semi-finals, and even in the back end of that season, the Central Coast Mariners stadium's full.
Yep.
Like, we're playing Newcastle Jets, it's full stadium, and you're going like unbelievable atmosphere as well. And all those games were I thought were, again, there was a bit of a hatred between Central Coast and Newcastle. I think there still is, but probably a little bit less so.
Gav's a Newcastle fan, but he's from Melbourne, but he goes for Newcastle.
Oh, okay.
Because of Vaughan Coveney.
He was my favourite player.
Yeah. We've got Luca here, son. So it's actually, I still think it's coming back. I still think that, you saw the other night with Adelaide Victory.
Great game.
They don't like each other.
Yeah.
No.
And it helps when you've got a little bit of that, Carl Witt's from Adelaide, so he can really drive it home with his team, his group, the supporters, the whole. And I know what it's like in Adelaide. Adelaide would then all jump on board. The advertiser would just be like, and so Victory still have that as well against Adelaide and against Sydney. And so I think this year I've seen a real step again in the right direction.
Definitely.
It's the national team. In some regards, do you feel like your club career has been forgotten about because of your success with the national team? Do people people kind of point to you for the penalty kick, for your goal against Japan, for all those sort of moments? Or is that what sort of people look back on you on with I guess, the highest regard?
Oh, in Australia, yeah, definitely. Because you have to remember at the time, the Premier League wasn't shown on TV week in, week out. It was more highlights. The La-Liga wasn't shown on TV week in, week out. So I understand that. I've got no problem with it. Over in Europe, I'm probably more recognised for, club. What I did at club level, but here in Australia, people will remember me, and it's, again, you could be remembered for bad things.
Yeah, that's a good point, J.A.
So,
that's a good point.
And it comes with it at times, because there'll be people that I remember when I was going through a bad time at Sydney FC, and it was a year that I wasn't good. I had bad injury, I was performing poorly, and everyone's going, oh, he just scored a penalty anyway, like, big deal, he scored a penalty. Yeah, they don't know what it took to get to that point.
I know, right?
To score the penalty. But so it can come with the pros and cons. But I was so lucky to be involved in a team that hadn't qualified for so long, and that we were there, that we knew and we believed we were going to qualify, and it was the best group to qualify with at that stage. That I was part of it.
Yeah. On that goal, I mean, you've spoken about it countless times, but what I wanted to ask was, we obviously all saw it. It was a momentous occasion. Your goal led to me becoming a football fan inadvertently, because before that, I only watched AFL. And I swapped over when Australia made the World Cup in 2006, and you would have done that for thousands of other people. We've seen the goal. It's iconic. It's one of the most classic moments in Australian sporting history. I want to know, though, when you got into your hotel or whatever that night and closed the door and you got into bed, what was going through your head? Like,
did you go to bed?
Did you go to bed? Yeah. Like, what happened after the game that maybe not many people know about, what you were feeling, or, even also after that, did you feel like you had to live up to it because it was such a big moment?
After it, I had to go back to Europe quite quickly.
Yep.
Because our league was still going, and my chairman was like getting angry that I was staying in Adelaide because I went back to Adelaide the next day. It was sort of funny because it's sort of like you live a moment, but it sort of feels like a surreal moment. It doesn't feel like you're part, because you see it that many times. Like going back from the hotel the next day, I can't remember the night too much because I think I had a bit too much to drink. So the next morning I'm going to the airport, and you're just looking everywhere, and there's just the television on, the news, whatever, just showing that. Then you see people reading the paper, and it's just a photo of that night, and you're just going, wow, like we've just made Australia, like. And then you're seeing people like celebrating, whether it's the people at the stadium, and then people showing you footage of people celebrating. Because back then they just started to be able to record on the phone.
Yeah.
Well, I'll never forget. My dad sent me to school in the Socceroos jersey the next day.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Gav, you're not wearing your primary school gear. You're going in the Socceroos jersey."
You must hear so many, so much shit like that from. Yeah, I imagine.
I remember taking penalties and doing the celebration. You know?
So the next day, I was on the flight with Tony Vidmar going back to Adelaide. We were going to spend a couple of days there, and the first time it really hit home what it meant to everyone, because I knew what it meant, because you're part of it. We're all part of it that support the game. But a guy said, "You made my dying father a happy man."
Fuck.
Yeah, and so I was just like, "Wow, that's that's something that I didn't expect." But felt like it, you don't play sport. You don't really, like, when you're growing up, you play sport because you love it, and you want to enjoy yourself. And then when you get to a level, you're sort of playing because you want to reach a level, but you don't feel the impact that it might have on people in their lives. And if you're lucky enough to be part of something that has a positive impact, and still to this day, I was in the gym. I should go to the gym more, but I was in the gym the other day, and I'm riding a bike, and the guy comes up to me and goes, "You're John, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And then I'm thinking, just let me ride my bike.
Yeah.
let me go. And then he said, I just wanted to come up to you because I was only 9 years old when you scored that penalty, but that's the best moment I ever had with my mum. I recall, and I was too scared to ask if his mum's still alive or not, because what was he trying to?
Yeah.
And that moment there is whenever I think of that moment, I think of my mum.
Yeah,
And so there's special things that you can.
That's probably the most special when you're hearing stuff from random people how it affected their life forever, rather than just qualifying for a World Cup.
Just and on that, because as much as I love that you get applauded for the penalty, your goal scoring record for the Socceroos was actually probably not spoken about. I think it was like almost a goal every 2 games. But no one really speaks about how good the penalty was, because it just went in. Yeah. But it was it was a fucking top penalty. The keeper, there wasn't much room for error with what he did.
I had the two thoughts that the day before we practiced penalties, but then I ended up staying behind and practicing 5 penalties that side.
Did you put them all in?
On the same side. And I remember Lucas Neal going, "Why you hit them all the same side?" And I said, because I know that if we're going to get a penalty shootout, we're getting one chance. So I want to be confident in my run up, in the striking of the ball. And it ended up being down that end. But it was, in the lead up to the game, I was thinking, so my Osasuna teammates, they were both playing, Pablo Garcia and Chenge Morales were playing in this game, and they know my strongest side is that side, but they don't. I have to go, you know what, if I hit it well enough, it's going to stay here and it's going to go in. But if I change sides and I don't hit it as well as I would like, and the goalkeeper goes that way, so I just thought, you know what, I'm confident that I can hit it that side. So as soon as I hit the ball, I felt that I hit it well, and then I see it going into the net, but there's a delay from the noise from the crowd, and I'm like going, I start running off, and you see there's a photo of me like with a serious face, and I'm like, is that in?
Did I hit the side
That's crazy. Before I go, just make sure.
Yeah. And then there was that half a second later, you just hear this eruption, because you think about it, like, I can see it's going in, but not everyone can see it's gone in yet. And then the rest, when the crowd erupted, I went crazy.
And is that you putting yourself forward that I'm taking this pen, or are people around you saying you take that pen?
I put myself forward. I just had a feeling and I feel embarrassed talking about this a little bit, because it seems like, and again, for a footballer, you have to have a little bit of an ego. I don't mean you have to be disrespectful, but you have to have a little bit of confidence about you. And the year before, not the year before, 4 months before that, the Confederations Cup, I think it was that. I scored.
You were banging in goals in that tournament, weren't you?
2 against Germany, 2 against Argentina.
That's right.
And I just felt that I'm gonna score the winner. And for about a year or 2 before that, I kept on saying it to my wife, to my brother, to my friends. Even like one night out with the Aussie team, I told Mark Viduka I'm going to score the winning goal to go to the World Cup. And So in the lead up to that game, I was upset that I wasn't starting, and I remember ringing my brother. And my brother goes, "Remember what you've been saying? Like, you're gonna score the winning goal. So come on and score the winning goal." And so I just had this belief that somehow the ball was going to be there for me to score the winning goal. And so when it was time to take penalties, Graham Arnold asked everyone who wants to take penalty, and straight up, yeah, I'm going to take it. He goes, "All right, you'll go number 1." I said, no, put me in number 5. As we know, number 5 doesn't necessarily mean you
correct.
the winning or the losing.
Yeah.
I just had this feeling it would be. So
you planted that seed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, I feel a little bit embarrassed because people might think this guy's full of himself. But when you just got that belief that will happen.
Yeah.
I feel like that's very football
I understand
mindset.
that. Yeah,
it's very football mindset.
Yeah.
where you
No,
just
like
have
I
this
understand that
feeling,
completely, bro.
Yeah.
Was there anyone else arguing for that spot?
No, and
just-
I didn't even know who was taking it, because I walked off straight away and started like focusing on the penalty, and I was like just talking myself through, the run up, just make sure you do the same that you did the day before, and just trying to focus. Then we get to the halfway line, and we've got our arms around each other, and I got Lucas here, and I go, "Oh, you taking a pen?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Are you?" I said, "Yeah." I go, "I'm number 5." And he looked at me and he goes, "Hero." I go, "Yeah, hero or villain?"
Yeah.
And then Tony Vidma walked up to take one. I'm going,
Wow.
who's ever seen Tony take a penalty?
Yeah.
And he took it with his left foot, his right foot.
Yeah. Then Craig Moore was on pens. It was a weird era.
No, Craig Moore wasn't.
But Craig Moore took it at the World Cup, didn't he?
Yeah, the World Cup. Yeah.
What do you know why he took it with his opposite foot? What?
Because he was a lot of the time he started to play left back or left centre back,
Right.
so he started getting really comfortable with his left.
People
even Aurelio Vidmar goes, when Tony was stepping up, he was going, "What the hell is he doing?"
He had a few
Imagine
Uruguayans
that
in the other
family
team.
household. God, wait a second. This is the biggest game ever. He got on his opposite foot.
That's crazy.
Did that moment, just a little quirky side note, did that moment get you on the cover of Pro Evo 6?
It did, yeah.
So how did you find out? How did you find out that you were going to be on the cover of Pro Evo?
Well, the agent that I had at the time asked me, "Does this money? Are you happy with this deal?"
I'm sure you would have been.
What a game that was,
Yeah.
too, by the way. That was a great game.
Because you're on the
I didn't
Australian
play it,
version.
but I was on this. I think it was the Australian version of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jake, do you want to?
I just wanted, before we finish up, because Jay, you've gone so long here, but which we appreciate your time for, but coaching. Pretty much to go into this season in particular, like I feel like people don't give you enough credit for your performances. I mean, I know you've won a championship, you've been here for a while, but what you're doing with the team this year, I think is really, really special. At what point did you know coaching was for you? Because I know it's a big, big change from a player.
Yeah, I felt that towards the end of my career, I become really interested in the coaching side. First, it started in Spain. I had an assistant coach that I really liked, and then I started to get interested in the actual the psychology of coaching, what we liked as players, what we didn't like, what I felt was an environment that I was at my best. Could I do that as a coach? But there were so many different factors to it that I go, it really interests me. So I started to do a little bit more study. I started to do my coaching badges. And then when you start off coaching, it's completely different.
Yeah.
No, it is different. You still have all the knowledge that you want to get out there. It's how you get that knowledge out there. It's how you simplify things. It's how you have structures and all these little details. But then you don't know the actual other side of managing up.
Never even thought of that.
Managing your playing group, but also managing your staff, also managing the media, the supporters. There's a lot to it, and then you still have to have that mental strength of, I know what I want and how we're going to get there, because you're going to get questioned no matter what. When you're a coach, you have to understand that when you're winning, you've got good players. When you're losing, it's the coach's fault.
Yeah.
So you have to actually know that can be the case. Know that people are going to dislike you, but again, I felt after that period at Melbourne Heart, which I didn't have success there at all, but I felt that I I knew after that period that I could become a coach, and I already had a bit of coaching experience, but I knew that I didn't change who I was going through a bad spell. I didn't change my relationship with players. I was honest with the players, the playing group, and I kept my integrity. And I feel that's really important, that as a person, as a coach, that you have your values and you stick by your values.
And what about stylistically in terms of philosophy or formations or tactics or anything like that? At what point do you allow any outside noise to influence your view on whether you should change something? Like, for example, Ange right now, all that stuff, the
I don't think you
getting
can. I don't think you can allow outside noise to change your way. I think you have to have your basic principles have to be there. Can you change depending on your players? Yes, I think you can be adaptable, but that's you. That has to know when to adapt, and your staff around you. But if you start listening to outside noise, then you're going to be sitting next to them pretty quickly, because the outside noise do not understand what's going on day to day. They can't understand what you're dealing with on a daily basis with certain players. So we get so much information thrown at us now through players' sleep, how they're feeling, their nutrition, what's going on at their home lives, what's going on within a club. Are you able to spend money, not spend money? You have to bring through youth, or you're going to get instant success. All that inside. The public can't understand that. It's impossible, because you can't give them all that information. So when I'm making a sub, people go, why is he making that sub? Oh, because I need to know through the right channels and the people that are giving me information, this player, if I play him 90 minutes, he's going to break down within a week or two. So we need to make sure that we load him correctly for whatever reason. Or it might be that his he had an illness during the week, but you're not going to come out there and say that in the public domain.
And you've got to bear that brunt. Like, there's so many times where, as a fan, I'm watching thinking, why the fuck's he done that?
Yeah.
But then I've got to check myself and be like, you know what? What do I know? He's spent 7 days a week with them.
Yeah.
He knows when they're going to sleep, when they're taking a shit, when they're doing everything. Obviously, he has a reason for it.
Yeah.
So sometimes I've got to check myself. Like even this morning, I'm watching a game and I'm thinking, okay, he hasn't made a sub yet. I don't know why.
Yeah.
How would I know?
Yeah.
This is why we need people to watch him watch football.
No, but it's true what you're saying, and I understand. I also what helped me during after that period at Melbourne Heart was I went and worked on Fox Sports, and so I was doing games. So I understood now the other side. I'm talking about the journalistic side and what they're looking at. They look at one moment in a game, and because that's a big moment, they will actually analyse that. So they're going about, this guy didn't run back at this time. Yeah, but the guy might have been carrying an injury, didn't run back. That doesn't necessarily mean that the team wasn't working hard for each other. But that's that moment they're going to pick up on, and they're going to take it.
Magnify.
So magnify. So I remember after games at Melbourne Heart, I'm talking to the media, and they're saying, you were terrible at this, and this. And I'm like, what game were you watching? But then I realised they can't possibly watch the game like I'm watching it, because I'm fully into analysing every little detail. And so I then accepted that journalists are going to have their questioning, and when I'm answering a question, it's not necessarily answering it to them. I'm answering it to that people that are watching can understand what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah,
that's fascinating.
Like a football,
you're great on camera. I was thinking that the other week. I'm like, there you go.
Like a football fan or a journalist, like you said, all they see is exactly what's happening on the pitch. Nothing else. They're not seeing what's going on behind the scenes in training. They're not. And the beauty of that bit of secrecy in football clubs. Imagine if everything was just in the open like that. It would be chaos.
Well, you think as well, I've got a duty of care to my players as well.
Correct.
So, I don't want to actually come out and public, because, sometimes they go, you're not hard enough on your players. Well, you don't know.
Yeah,
what do you know? What I'm like. I'll protect my players, and then I'll very rarely ever bring up an individual in a press conference. I don't think I ever have in terms of a critical way. I've brought up individuals in terms of certain situations that I feel that need that everyone knows, like say like about Noah Botic, we need to protect him, but I think it's his best for his pathway to do this. But that's me giving my opinion. But I would never give my opinion on, say someone made a bad mistake and I'm going to go, it's his fault. Like, hold on a second, then I'm completely going to lose that player and maybe other players around with it. So, again, I've seen that happen. I've seen coaches do it. Everyone's got a different way. My way is that I want us to feel comfortable in this environment, that we can speak behind closed doors in a way that they can understand, all right, that wasn't good enough. Or that effort wasn't enough.
There's those mad genius coaches that will do it and it'll be like only they could do it. Like only Mourinho could do it or only whatever. But then I've seen it happen where coaches have done it and you mean sacked the week after.
Mourinho's done it and been sacked.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, but I was thinking of Troy Deeney. Remember when he came out and said, he was absolutely horrible. Like, he just ripped into one player the whole interview, lost his job the next week. That's one way to lose your job. Like, so are you much of a spray at half time or do you like to keep it?
Oh, it depends on the situation. Yeah. It depends on your group. Depends on, certain individuals. It depends on a lot because I've actually sprayed a group once so much at halftime that I didn't get the positive reaction I wanted. So I go, okay, I know now that I can't do that with this sort of group. And then there's other times that I've done it and I've gone, okay, I've got a reaction that I wanted. A lot of the time at halftime, it's getting them to see certain things that might be not going well and understanding how we can fix it and giving them the belief, because I hate when, and we've all been there, when you're hiding or you haven't been brave enough to play. Like, be brave. Like, there's sometimes we get our press wrong because our press is very aggressive and that we might get caught out and get a one-on-one against us. Yeah, but we're pressing because we know that when we win the ball back, we're winning it in good areas. So sometimes we're going to be a little bit off. I hate when a player goes and he's half going. No. Let's fully go together. Yeah. And it's even like with the ball. I don't like that when we beat a line and we go backwards again. No. Let's go forward. So they're things I'll bring up at halftime. Come on, boys. Let's be more positive. Let's be more brave. Let's be like, certain games that this season, there's only been one or two that I didn't feel we were brave enough. Yeah. And I told them that that's not us. It can't be us.
Where do you draw the line of having standards and giving them confidence that or security in making mistakes and safety and no, be brave, I'll support you even if you try something and you make a mistake, and now you've tried 7 times and you keep making mistakes and now at some point I need to smash you. How do you sort of balance that?
It's a good point. It depends on. So I have clear principles of play and structures that I feel that the players need to, like, say with patterns of play or whatever it is. And so if they're trying to do something but they're making that mistake, now why are they making it? Is it because they're not switched on? Is it because they haven't prepared well? Is it because they're just having an off day? All right, so if they're having an off day, I always say to your teammate, your teammate's having an off day, how are you going to help him through that? Can you recover for him? Can you actually end up being like your reaction to a mistake? Because everyone can make a mistake. It's how you react to that mistake. Are you going to react by hiding again, or are you going to react by doing the same sort of thing, but making sure? Because sometimes as a midfielder, you go, okay, I've made a mistake now playing the ball forward 2 or 3 times. The next one, I'm just going to make it stick. I'm going to make sure and then grow myself back into the game. Yeah. And so they're little details, but we want standards. We've got our values. We've got our things that we drive every day. Not only out on the pitch but off the pitch. So we're big on that. If someone turns up late to a meeting, they have to have a pretty good reason why they're turning up late to a meeting. Yeah. If someone's not preparing right for training, they have to have a very good reason why I'm not preparing right, because I'm big on respect. Now, you're disrespecting, first of all, your teammates, yourself, the club, and the game, because this is our profession. So do everything right to get the best out of what you can do. And if you make a mistake, then I'm comfortable with it because we all make it. Yeah. I'm the first one that's still going to make mistakes, but I want the players to know that I'm okay with mistakes. I'm not okay with you not preparing and not being ready for
the right attitude.
Yeah, with the right attitude.
Yeah. What would you say now, playing both sides of the fence? Which would you say is mentally more difficult, as a coach or as a player?
different, completely different. As a player, no matter what, if you had a good game and your team didn't win, you're upset, but it doesn't weigh you down nowhere near as much as
I scored
coach.
a hat trick. We lost 4-3.
Like as a coach, you like when the team loses, you go, okay, it's on me.
Yeah.
It's on me.
Wow.
All right, I need to go and figure out why we lost, how we lost, and how to make sure that next time I step foot into that club, that the players know that we're on the right track and how we can get in the right direction. Because they're looking at you first. Yeah. So as a player, players aren't necessarily looking at other players. It might rub off on them a little bit, if a player's feeling confident. But they're looking at their coach or their leader or whoever it is to go, all right, this is what we have to do to actually make this right.
Yeah, take the pressure off them and then go forward.
And it's not easy. Yeah. Sometimes when you've lost 3 in a row, you go, okay, I need to walk in. The hardest thing is, so when we lose a game, if I've given the next day off, I'm like, so for instance, the victory game, but you were there at the victory game.
Yes, one of the best games I've seen live.
But the one before when I lost it.
Yeah, it wasn't one of the best games I've seen. Yeah.
So it was my daughter's 21st that night.
Oh no! You'd be fuming.
And the poor thing, I'm so angry, and it's just eating, you're like eating me up inside. So I'm like I'm trying to put on a brave front for my daughter. We didn't have a big party. She had a big party the next week, which was good. But I'm still burning. So until that next day that you go in and address your group, it's eating you.
So you don't speak after games, especially in that.
I speak briefly.
Okay, touch.
I'll touch on something, but I won't touch on a whole tactical or whatever, because I learned that your emotions can be pretty.
I imagine.
Yeah. So if you're going to start to finger point, it can get nasty.
You're going to have some apologies.
They're going to end up being these finger points.
But also for a player as well. A player's emotional after a game. So it's better that I keep it as an even sort of, I can be angry, but also go, okay, we'll talk about the tactical side and whatever side after the next day. And until you address that, then you're back again to, okay, we're ready again. Like we're ready to go again.
Yeah,
because for a day or whatever, it's the
tough.
worst feeling.
Yeah.
Whereas as a player, you're down, but it was a different sort of down.
Hey, Jay's got like pod fitness, man. I feel like we could speak to you all day.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
we have this saying with us, like pod fitness, because when it's just us four, obviously we can go for as long as we want. And he doesn't breathe, like he can go for as long as ever. He's been impressive. Some people fatigue, some people like slouch, but
I'm used to it because I've done like a Optus Sport.
The long nights,
the long nights.
I think unless you boys have anything more,
We've got a couple more hours.
Huh? A couple more hours.
I'll just give 2 cents on. I asked Jay to do a podcast like 6 months ago. He said yes. He saw me at a game probably 2 months ago. He come up to me and said, "I owe you a podcast." Credit to him. He's brought us in. We've seen this whole club is such a similar to what you said about Osasuna. This has a very family-esque like feel to it. Like we've gone in the kitchen. The chef's given us some food. Mel's given us this big tour. Kids are running around. You guys are getting results as well. It just feels like there's a lot going on here that your experience has maybe touched on, and obviously the ownership and support. It's a very special place.
I feel that especially it's all good now because the results have been there of late.
I'm sure.
It's I think your environment is so important because players, and we've all played or followed the game, and you know that if you're going into work and you're happy, you improve a lot quicker than if you go into an environment that you're not happy.
Yeah.
And I felt that my years in Spain, that's where I felt that I improved the most and I felt at my best because I loved going in to train. I loved going into work. Yes, you still had the pressures of performing on a weekend and the results and all that, but this just made it so much easier. So I feel that if you can create an environment like that, it's not always easy. But if you can create that, then I think you're on the way to something special. So we feel that we're off to a good start this season. We still got quite a few games left, but the young boys have really stepped up, doing well.
Super impressive,
and it's been positive.
Bravo.
Yeah, I think what a way to wrap there. Again, from myself as well, thank you so much for your time, John. Like, we know that you're a very busy man. Thank you to the broader Western United team for everything they've done for us. That was amazing. Thank you so much for your insight. Booters, again, where else are you going to get JA on giving this type of insight? So for that, I'm going to need you to subscribe on Spotify, on YouTube. Apple's coming. I'm working on it. It's been tough for me. 5 stars on Spotify. Like on YouTube. Follow on Instagram if you're not. We love you. John, thank you. Fellas, that was awesome.
Bravo. Well done, Jay. Thank you, mate.
Thank you.
That was awesome, bro.